Hey everybody, it's Lori here from Butterfly Woman Creations, and I just wanted to kind of continue from last week's video. Last week we showed you how to put some beads onto your loom, and so we have, I wanted to continue this piece real quick here. I wanted to show you how to kind of finish off your work. If you'll remember, I showed you how to use this little helper bead last week, and so what I'm going to do now is I'm going to show you where to put the string, because obviously you don't want to have this string here. And so real quick, just take that helper bead off, and then you're going to go ahead and take your tail and thread it back through your needle. This can be a little tricky with the yarn here, so like so. And then you're going to take, this is your tail that we had the helper bead on, you're going to go and weave this tail back through your work. Now this is really super simple when you're working with your Nymo thread. A little bit harder when you're working with this yarn because the needle is actually passing through the yarn. But I want to show you how to do this so that you know what to do with this tail here. So you just pass that through like so, and then that tail pretty much becomes invisible. You'll go up to your next row here, and you're going to continue to weave through. This one you can put on the top. Really doesn't matter at this point because basically you're just weaving back and forth through those remaining beads. Thank goodness we don't have to work with yarn all the time because it is kind of somewhat tedious here. There we go. Pull that through, and then basically you'll just continue to work this tail through at least the first maybe 5 or 6 rows of your work, because when you're doing this you're going to be working with you know, probably like a size 11 seed bead and not these huge pony beads. Now up here what we're going to do is finish this off on the top. And so if you, for example, say that this is your last row of beads, you still have this string here, and you need to kind of get this so that it's going to work for you so that it doesn't come all apart, because that's the worst thing in the world to happen, as you've created this beautiful piece of beadwork and then all of a sudden your strings come loose and then you have just a handful of loose beads in your lap. We don't want that to happen. So what I'm going to do now is kind of show you how I do this. And again, like I said before, there are so many different methods of how to work with beads. You know, there's methods that have been passed down from generation to generation, and if you have one of those methods and it works for you, that's fantastic. Do what you know how to do. But for those of us who are just learning, here's a suggestion. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and just start weaving back and forth through my warp threads, and we're going to kind of create this little edge, and this is going to seat down. Now, one thing I did want to tell you that I didn't mention last week is when you're working with these beads, you know, you're not going to be able to see your strings in between. But because I'm using the yarn and because we're kind of doing this on a larger scale, I didn't pull those tight. When you actually do work with your regular beads, the thread isn't going to be so thick, and so those beads will actually touch from side to side. And then we're going to go back the other way. We have a little Carolina wren that's nesting outside our door here. I'm sure you can hear it chirping. That's a nice friend to have. And so we're going to continue to weave that through there like so. And then just kind of push that down to where it's flat. And again, working with that yarn, sometimes it will snag. So don't worry about that because you won't be actually working with the yarn. And again, just weave through. Oops, I just lost my needle. And so when you're doing this with your thread, you don't have to catch every single one. Even if you do like every other string, that's fine. But again, you're just basically making that edge that you can kind of cinch down to your beadwork. And so that way it'll hold that beadwork into place for you. Now, I have in the past before even went back through, and after I've created this edge here, then I will actually even take like a little bit of E6000 glue and just kind of put on the top of this little selvage edge that we're making. And that's fine too. Again, anything to kind of secure that beadwork, because you just don't want to lose it after you've put all those hours into what you've been working on. And so just kind of weaving that back and forth. Kind of takes you back to the old school weaving when you were a kid and you had the yarn looms and kind of had that fun stuff going on there. So, and this just sets down on top of that. And then I would recommend that you continue this process for about 1 inch of your work at least. That way you know it's going to be nice and secure. And then you can do this actually on the top and the bottom of your beadwork, because like I said before, you just want to make sure that everything is secure after you put in all those hours of work on your stuff here. So this is going to be the last one that I'll do for you here. I'm going to pull again that through. So, and if your strings, you know, start to work down this way, that's even better. That's fine, because in that way it lets you hide that tail underneath your beadwork once you cut this off the loom. And one more tip that I wanted to share with you this week is, a lot of you, if you're like me, you like to work on your stuff on the road or, you know, someplace. And so I like to have my stuff portable. That's one of the reasons why I absolutely love this loom. But this is something that I picked up somewhere. And so I wanted to show you this. This is the cone of my Nymo thread that I take with me every single place that I go. One of the worst nightmares is to have your thread start coming off of your cone. And so what I've done here, I saw this somewhere, I can't remember where, but this is basically just the cardboard off of some bathroom tissue. And so what you do is you cut it up the middle. You cut it up the middle like so, and then you make one little slip here. And then what you do is you wrap that around your thread. And find that little slit right there, pull your tail through, and then you can just kind of wrap that around like so. And then I just take a hair tie, one of my girls' hair ties, and put on there. That way you have your string contained, and you won't have to worry about spending hours or wasting a lot of thread because it kind of got out of hand. So there you have it. There's just some tips for this week. Again, please let me know what you think of these videos. Feedback is always great. That way I can kind of improve and help you guys learn. Also, if you have something that you want to see that we haven't covered yet, just drop me a line and I'll try to get to that for you. So until next week, thanks so much. Happy beading.